All right. That will bring us to the CFP semifinals. Michigan. Let's go Michigan TCU first.
Okay.
This opened at like 9.5, right? Michigan minus nine
Yep.
and a half. I've been on, so I'll start here. I don't want to give away my full prediction, but I think a lot of people wanted to take Michigan at that point. I think that was a good number, 9.5. Like you're getting that extra, just under 10 there. I actually think TCU is going to be very competitive. What are your metrics tell you, and kind of, do you buy whatever the metrics are telling you?
Yeah, this game is really interesting from like a betting market perspective because I thought 9.5 was a good number. My projection on the game is Michigan minus 10.5. So I thought 9.5 was fair. But a lot of sharp guys agree with you, and so this has been bet down to 7.5. I won't be surprised if it touches 7 here before kickoff on Saturday. However, my numbers have been extremely high on Michigan all season, and they've been proven right more often than not for being so high on Michigan. So I think I haven't made a play on this game yet, but I think I was thinking about it earlier, and I think I'm going to wait as long as I can to see if this number touches 7. I can grab it at minus 110 odds, but if I can't, I will buy the half point to get to minus 7 at minus 120 odds.
So you are rolling with the numbers, and you're doubling down. So I think Michigan's going to win, but I don't think they're going to cover. I think TCU, certainly not the 9.5. Gosh, if it gets down to 6.5 or 7, who knows? I mean, anything could happen. You can get a touchdown in the final seconds to kind of push it over. But I think TCU. We've talked about this all season. We've talked about like TCU and kind of what to make of them, because on one hand, everyone's kind of dogged the schedule a little bit because, Big 12, not great this year. They've kind of, as I've said, they've kind of made a deal with the devil. It feels like they've got to play a bunch of backup quarterbacks. They've pulled some games out that maybe they shouldn't have, but yet here they are, really maybe a bad call or two away from being undefeated right now. They've beat everyone in front of them except, they split with Kansas State. I don't know. I think TCU is going to give Michigan a very interesting test. I think TCU is extremely balanced offensively. I think Michigan's defense is at its best when it can kind of key on something and just take away something. I don't think you can really do that with TCU. Kendry Miller's an outstanding running back, I think 1,500 yards this year, runs with a lot of power, a lot of toughness. Quarterback, Max Duggan, great player, very tough kid. They've got receivers. Quentin Johnson's going to be a first-round pick. I don't think you just look at TCU and say, well, if we just do this one thing, we're going to make life really tough for them. And I think that's going to maybe bring out a side of the Michigan defense that I don't know if we've really seen this year, because I think a lot of the teams they played, even some of the ones that gave them trouble, like Illinois, you can kind of like, okay, if you can stop Chase Brown, or with Ohio State, it's like, well, if you can take the receivers, or if you can force Ohio State to just kind of run it down your throat, if you can kind of take away the explosive passing game of Ohio State, you can frustrate them. I don't know that there's a style of play that frustrates TCU.
Yeah, I think my concern with TCU is I feel like they've relied a lot on explosive plays. They've been very good at creating them, but this Michigan defense is not a defense that really allows a whole lot of that, both on the ground and through the air. And I was just looking at my ratings. So I've got TCU as the number 17 offense. I've got Michigan as the number 3 offense. But on the other side, I've got Michigan as the number 2 defense, but TCU is the 41st ranked defense. And I don't think that's going to be enough to slow down Donovan Edwards and JJ McCarthy.
That's kind of where I fall short of picking TCU. I don't know that they're going to get enough stops. I think Michigan is going to be able to kind of have their way a little bit with their running game. I think that's going to be TCU's ultimate downfall in this. I think Michigan's going to be able to control the clock to an extent. You did talk about the explosive plays. I do think, I talked about, I don't know that Michigan's defense can really just key on one thing, but what can happen is Michigan's offense can control clock and control time of possession and can kind of keep the play a little bit of keep away. And so I think that'll probably be what happens in the second half. Blake Corum had a great year. He's a really good player. I don't know that he's better than Donovan Edwards, though.
Yeah, I stopped short of saying that, but I agree with you. I think Blake Corum is very, very good, but I think when you watch Donovan Edwards run, it's like it's different. When he hits that top gear, it's different than what Blake Corum does, I think.
And we may not even, we'll maybe get a bit of an answer on this next year, but it would not shock me if next year Donovan Edwards had just an unbelievable year. And people are like, oh, wow, why didn't he carry the ball more this year? It's like, well, Blake Corum's pretty good too. But
yeah,
I don't think the drop off there is particularly significant. I think there are things that Edwards does better. I think he's a better pass catcher. And I think he's again, as you mentioned, I think he's more of a home run hitter too. So I don't look at that as a big thing for Michigan. Now, obviously, if something happens to Donovan Edwards, we kind of saw at points this year when they had both guys out, kind of what happens, and it goes into the tank. But as long as Donovan Edwards can go and touch the ball 20, 25 times, I do think Michigan's going to pull this out. But TCU's kind of the team, and I was as guilty of this as anyone, that everyone's kind of picked against all year. And so I just, they've continually pretty much proven people wrong, including myself. I'm not even like, I could sit here and be like, yeah, I said they would lose eventually. I knew they would lose to Kansas State the second time, but like they had some bad calls against them in that game. I'm not like super proud that I was like right about that. Like I was only kind of right about that. I mean, I didn't feel great. Like, oh, I totally nailed that one. Like I really didn't feel that way. And I think this will be more of the same. I think they'll play them down to the wire, but I think Michigan, and I think, I don't know. I think it's actually be a little bit lower scoring. I think this might be like a 28-24.
Yep.
I know it's not super low score, but I think it's, I think what we're accustomed to seeing in some of these playoff games is someone gets to 40. I don't know that anyone's going to get to 40 in this one.
Yeah, I think if Michigan has their way, that's the way the game would play out. I think if you see this much higher scoring, I think that's probably good news for TCU, because that probably means they're hitting some explosives and getting some points on the board quickly. But I think if Michigan has their way and they can control the clock and just methodically move down the field, I think that does lend itself to a more low-scoring game.
Yeah. So that brings us. So we both have Michigan winning, right?
Yep.
You have Michigan covering, maybe, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, like if I had to make a play on the number right now at 7.5, I would reluctantly take Michigan. But again, if I'm like truly like making a bet strategically, I would buy it to 7. I
don't have to worry about the line movement. I just was in the bowl pick'em pools that I'm in, and I was able to get TCU at 9.5. So I took TCU in my bowl pick'ems. So
there you go.
I think
Smart.
that's I think it's a big. I just think that's a big number. That's a big number for me.